I think
I,
let's start now because
Okay.
it's 4 minutes after 6 and Tyler has a lot of information to give, and I see his partner Alan is here too that can also help us. So let's go.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see here. Let me know if you can see my screen then.
yes,
Or what you see. Do you see the, okay.
I see it.
Okay, great. So Alan and I are both residents of University Park. We are on a newly formed, I guess as of this year, pretty much Tree Advocacy Group called TAG. Formed this year, and we're going to give a pretty brief presentation that's more about kind of the mission and why we formed the Tree Advocacy Group. Some of the stuff we've accomplished this year, and then one of the things we really kind of want to get a little more feedback on, hopefully it sparks some interest from everybody else as well, is a letter we've sent recently to the city to try to expand the tree ordinance. So it's a pretty brief presentation, so feel free to interrupt us whenever, but it won't be that long either. So like I said, we formed this group. There was great concern in our neighborhood. A lot of the redevelopment happening, and a lot of people were scraping houses and tearing down a lot of trees on the whole lot. And then also a lot of trees even in the setbacks in the right of way, which technically they're not supposed to be doing. And then our neighborhood also, trees are an important character, just like they are in many of our neighborhoods. And they have been the whole time since the founding of the neighborhood. So they are really important. And, you know, as we probably all know, tree canopy in Denver is dropping significantly year after year right now. So we formed this group to help kind of, on one hand, protect our existing trees, then also to promote the planting of new trees. So these are our three, basically our goals, our mission, to inform everybody about the canopy, the tree canopy in our neighborhood. The second one, which we've done a lot of as well, is communicate with developers and residences the consequences of destroying old tree growth, and also just kind of also inform about the rules and regulations that are in place currently. Sometimes people just weren't following those, and sometimes because they just didn't know what was there. And then also the last goal was to create a mutual respect for the local environment through education and involvement. And so with that, we're expanding a little bit beyond just trees. We're also working on, we have Prairie Park on Bucktail Boulevard here in our neighborhood, and another Harvard Gulch Canal, some of the other natural spaces. We've done a lot of advertising in our neighborhood newsletter that goes out once a month as well. A couple things we've already accomplished really this year. In the newsletter, we've had some meetings with Denver Forestry to really understand the right-of-ways and the setbacks and what the rules and regulations are, what's enforceable and what's not. And then we did communicate a lot of that information through our newsletter to the rest of the residents in the neighborhood as well. We've been helping coordinate planting of trees for memorials in the neighborhood. A recent one just went in Observatory Park. And then we're also trying to encourage planting of new trees on private property. And that's working with the city of Denver and the Smart Ash program. And just, we've kind of done a preliminary canvas of the entire neighborhood of what houses or properties could use more trees. And we're spreading information that way too, and trying to get people to sign up for those free trees that they can get. We've generated a t-shirt, just kind of raise awareness and generate revenue. That's kind of a mock-up of it up there. We haven't really released that yet. Down here on the bottom is an image too, just with the tree protection fencing. Even when developers are trying to do the right thing, or maybe they don't know, they start to fence around these trees, and this is clearly not out to the full canopy width of the tree as that fencing should be. So we've established, I think it's about 6 different signs that we can go and put up on these fences around the neighborhood that kind of start advocating as well for the ordinances and protecting the tree and the tree roots. So, I mean, we really just started the end of last year, beginning of this year, and I feel like we've been pretty lucky, made a lot of progress so far. But the big thing we just kind of want to go through with you guys today, and I think Maggie sent out in advance a copy of the letter we sent to the city, but it's really just recommended changes to the City of Denver tree ordinance, and that's from going from setbacks and right-of-ways to expanding kind of their oversight to the entire property. And so with that, I will turn it over to Alan to explain kind of where that fits right now and some of the nuances of that letter.
Okay, thanks, Tyler. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Yes, you should have all gotten copies of the October 12th letter we sent out recommending some various changes to the tree ordinances, mainly in response to all this scrape off and clearing of lots. We sent it to the city forester, the executive director of community planning and development, and to University Park's city councilman, Paul Cashman. Before I get into the recommendations, I thought I'd briefly tell you about the current tree protections given to areas zoned residential. The city has oversight of trees in the right-of-way at all times. And they also have oversight on the residential lots, primary street setback, which is sometimes called a front setback, during construction. And that extends maybe 20 to 25 feet into the lot from the street right-of-way. So it's a large part of the front yard. Our first proposal is to expand the city's oversight of trees to the entire residential lot being developed. So that's simple enough. It'd be front yard, backyard, and side yards, everything. Next, we asked that a tree replacement ordinance be established. And this would have two purposes. The main purpose would be to maintain a neighborhood's tree canopy. And a secondary purpose would be to discourage builders from taking down existing trees on the lot. So if healthy trees are removed anytime from the right-of-way or during construction on the lot, replacement trees must be planted on either the lot or a nearby public area, such as a park or another street right-of-way. Now, the number of these trees, replacement trees, which would be roughly 2 to 3 inches in trunk diameter, will be a function of the tree removed. The bigger the tree taken down, the more replacement trees required. Now, the exact values would have to be figured out, worked out over time, but just for an example, you could say if you took down a tree between 6 inches and 12 inches in trunk diameter, it would require 2 replacement trees. And if you go up to 12 inches to 18 inches, maybe 4 replacement trees. But you get the drift. Bigger the tree, the more replacement trees. And next slide. Tyler? You want me to put on my video?
It should be there now.
Okay, good. I'll put on my video. All right, many places currently have tree replacement ordinances. Examples are state of New Jersey, counties in Maryland and California, Seattle, and many others. So we're not inventing the wheel here. It's already been invented. And this has been successfully applied in a number of places, probably hundreds actually, especially out east. Another recommendation we're making is give additional protections to trees designated as champion or notable. Denver Forestry has a list of these champion and notable trees in the city. There may be 250 trees on the list. It shows lists of location, the type of tree, and its size. And roughly half of them are on private property. So it would be great if we could add some additional hoops you'd have to jump through before cutting down one of these trees when you're redeveloping a site, or maybe even any time. Third recommendation was to change the current ordinance from saying the city may require compensation for trees removed in the right-of-way or primary setback without a permit to they must get compensation for these trees. Now, the compensation is just the assessed value of the tree, and you could probably take the replacement tree money out of that and you still have some left over, because replacement trees are going to cost maybe $500 to $600 per tree for that size in Denver. So actually the city does grant a permit to take down trees in the right-of-way in the front setback in certain instances when the tree is dead or dying or damaged or dangerous. So you could get a permit. The last recommendation would be to ensure that trees planted in the right of way are given post-planting care by the city. And that's not really an ordinance change. That's just trying to remind them to do that, because we've had an awful drought this year, and you plant a tree, you want it to survive. There's no sense in planting trees and having them die the next year. So our letter recommends a stakeholders group be formed and look into these and other tree related issues. We're thinking maybe there'd be a representative from Denver Forestry, community planning and development, you know, a couple neighborhood associations, developer or two, and maybe even outside group like parks people. But that would be our hope, that something like that would form. So if any of your groups are interested, feel free to send a letter to the Denver Forester and the other people I listed, your councilman. And feel free to plagiarize all you want from our letter. We have no problems with that. Anything else, Taylor?
No, I think that's all we have. So if you guys have any questions for us, please let us know. We really appreciate you just taking the time, allowing us to share what we've been working on.
I have
Hoping that maybe
I have a couple of questions for Alan and Tyler. The tree ordinance letter, have you reached out to other RNOs for signatures for support? That's one. And also, the tree canopy, as the tree grows and starts blocking out solar panels, I think not only are trees important, but trimming and trimming the canopy is very, very important also for the health of the tree. And has that been addressed? Thank you. George Mail. Thanks. Corey Merrill.
Well, the tree trimming, the trees on your lot, on your private property, that would be up to you. We don't see that really as an ordinance change in the city. And the city is supposed to take care of the trees in the parks. And right away, I think that's your responsibility. You need trees in your right of way. So are you saying we should, what are you asking us to do, recommend?
Well, I guess what I'm asking is there anything that can move people to address the health of their trees by pruning? I guess
Right,
that's
right. Yeah, that would be more of an education thing, not an ordinance change.
So
Educate people, yeah.
sorry, I have a little something to add into that maybe. I have been doing a lot with local parks here and getting CORA requests done, which basically indicates how the city and how Park and Rec are taking care of their plants. And it is way beyond and way below your standards. They have not watered well. They have done a lot of Roundup, and they have done synthetic fertilizing, and they are injecting the trees with slow growth and no growth hormones. So if you are planting these trees, please contact me, seriously, because there is no point in spending $500 to $800 on trees that will not get cared for properly by the city. I also fully agree with what the gentleman said. We may say that it is our residents' responsibilities or the school's responsibilities or the church's responsibilities, but many of our trees are so ill taken care of that is part of why when we have a little tiny bit of wind, all of a sudden the tree comes falling down, and that's why everybody wants to cut their trees down. If we had proper tree care and Save a Tree wasn't spending all their money on just taking trees down, but actually helping the tree stay alive. I know I sound really combative here, but your idea is wonderful and it's perfect, but there are some concerns that will make it so difficult for people if you force them to do something. Financially, many people will not do it. And so we still end up with the problem of the tree either being removed after it's been replanted, or it not being well taken care of, and therefore what's the point of the tree? So I'm wondering how you can address that, or how we as a group, it's not just education, but maybe there's somewhere where there is some funding that can come from a location to help make sure that these trees, especially between the years of 1 and 5, are getting the accurate maintenance they need, because their root systems are not solid yet.
So you're worried about the trees in the right of way mainly. That's,
I think also the trees, and look, if a developer needs to put a new tree in, I think that's a wonderful ordinance, but the developer leaves. And sometimes the new homeowner doesn't enter that home for another 3 to 6 months. And so this tree is not getting watering, it's not getting any nutritional care, and the roots are not going to be very strong and healthy, and the tree has a hard time, you know, becoming a mature big tree again.
well, maybe we could add some language that the trees, replacement trees planted on site will be maintained by the homeowner or something like that. It's always tricky getting into telling people what to do on their own property. They're very sensitive to that. So,
But if they get a free tree, or they get a $500 or $600 tree allocated, which we can get that from the city, then I think it is their responsibility that if somebody comes by in the next 3 to 6 months, that that tree hasn't dried out and isn't dead. Otherwise, what's the point of providing the tree?
yeah. So hopefully, yeah, if we form the stakeholders group, we can look into issues like that in more detail. Because we just are trying to get the ball rolling here. So
No, it's
anything
a
you can do to
wonderful
help
idea.
get the ball rolling.
Yep. And please call me. I have some Cora requests. We've got to talk to Park and Rec and the city about what they're doing with their current trees, because there's no point in having them put more trees somewhere and saying, oh, well, the city will take care of it. They're not.
Uh-huh.
They won't.
May I jump in here for a minute? I think that we need to be sensitive to not just areas with developers, when we think about it, that have established trees, but there's a large portion of our city on the west side, in the southwest, northwest, and northeast area that don't have the luxury of a tree lawn, or for what you want to call it.
Tree
And
replacement.
if you want this to be significant, you need to be, it needs to be encompassing. And a gentrification comes to areas where there are not trees, and they're not sidewalks. I'm not sure how you would incorporate that, but my concern is your area, and I know your area well, has an abundance of beautiful trees. There are areas in our city that do not have that abundance of trees. And when we talk about, let's just talk about building the density. They don't create a sense of density. When they create density, high density, they don't allow for significant tree development. So let's be sure that we make this encompassing and not so specific.
I see a question here from, I'm sorry, excuse me.
No, that's good.
I see a question here from Katie and Steve Fisher. You had your hand up. Unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm unmuting myself. We gotta go put the phone in the other room. It's ringing. One of the things you said is for the city to, help establish on the right of way. The city does not do anything. It's usually the parks people, or not the parks people. What is it? The trees. The homeowner from day one, once that tree is established onto the right of way, it is the homeowner's responsibility. City never comes back again. The forester has been nice about giving us information, but no one comes by and water. One of the other comments I wanted to make is so often I'm over in University neighborhood adjacent to you guys. When we see the fences go around, they turn off the sprinkler system. And so often those trees will go 9 months during construction, a year, with no one ever coming out. I think we really need to put in your idea too, that if the construction firm or whatever we're going to call the developers, I have roped off a tree, it is their responsibility to protect, water that tree, and really be accountable to that. And that is so critical that we see all the time where they're roped off, but nobody gives a darn. And 2 years later, the tree root systems have been destroyed underneath with the construction going on top of it. New cuts into the sewer system. So the tree root system.
A drought year like we've had.
Drought year, not a single thing. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Great.
To that, there is a really neat solution that they've done in some other areas. And if you find some sister cities that have been working on this, which I can help you with some information from California, where I recently was from, they actually created a lot of jobs for developers to pay people to come out and do this stuff. So all of a sudden now you can say to the city, we can create jobs for not only the city, but also for the community to make sure that developers will do this. Because they're obviously not going to come by with their own trucks. But there are plenty of people here looking for work. And this is not a job that needs a lot of job training. It's just an oversight scenario. So there are opportunities here where you can bring together, we can make jobs for you, which generally helps you get funding for some sort of an NGO that you might want to start to actually move this thing forward with more funding.
I'd like to add real quick that the city of Denver does have really pretty good tree protection fencing details in place already, where you do have to water it. There is fencing. You can't drive over the roof. It's more enforcement. They have a detail, developers have to use it. It has to go on all the drawings for new development, but it comes down to enforcement. And so in our neighborhood, we've really had luck with our local forester. Whenever we see, like one of the pictures I showed, we see that, we call him, and he'll get out there in that day or the next day to take a look at it himself and write a ticket or speak with him at least to do whatever needs to be done.
Can I make a comment?
I need to ask you though, and I love what you're bringing to us, to INC. I think it's a critical and important piece to saving the trees that are on the property. Critical, especially champions and significant trees, and to enforce better planting. But the bottom line is, please remember, INC encompasses the whole city, and we need to be looking at, if they come to your area immediately, what about the areas that don't have the eyes on the trees, and how do we help them?
Well, I would encourage the other neighborhoods to send letters to the same people we sent them to and identify the issues that are important to you, because these list the issues that are important to our neighborhood. And then some of them might overlap, but you might have your own issues. Send it, ask for a stakeholders group to form, and we can get some input into this.
I would like to make a comment. This is Miles Tanglin from Congress Park. What I've been seeing with some of the large developments, and I know the city knows what's going on, but they're not really doing anything. Basically, the developer just fences off the area, and it was like what Katie was saying. They just don't water. So the building may go up in a year and a half and everything dies on site. And then they go through there and they clear it all out because now it's a dead tree and they can't be fined for it. So it's actually, unfortunately, a strategy for the developer to basically replace all the trees. And it would be nice to, again, be able to protect those trees, because I agree with you, things grow so slowly here. Ninth in Colorado took down some elms, and basically they had pruned the trees in the right of way. But I'd heard from people working on it, they wanted the trees gone because it was going to get in the way of the scaffolding. So then what the city said was, oh, they told us they were infested, so we allowed them to cut them down. So there's this game going around, and it's just horrible because, again, some of these trees, to get to 20 years is a big deal, and things just grow so bloody slow here. So I don't know how you address that, but they do that a lot.
That it's incumbent on the neighborhood organizations to keep track of that. Neighborhood, they know what houses are going up and what trees are endangered. I think we as a group need to be a little more proactive in getting our RNOs on board with this. You have to water the tree next door. You're just going to have to water the tree next door.
I think that also kind of comes down to what I experienced when I was trying to get these CORA requests. There are people in place specifically for this because there is a lot of political gaming going on. And we can certainly work together as a team to find out who the people are that can help us to get the right answers and to get this managed. Because if you don't, like I said, and everybody else here is saying, it's a wonderful idea, but the tree will never make it past 2 or 3 years. So we've really got to do this as a group effort, and the RNOs can help with that. The HOAs can help with that. The schools, we have to get Park and Rec on board. There are various churches that have a lot of property with trees that need help. So really, it's just a matter of kind of, making the neighborhood somewhat responsible. On Nextdoor, if you put anything about trees, people freak out. There's the get it torn down or keep it alive group. And so we want to inform people on Nextdoor. Why do you really have to have a tree taken down? If it can maybe, be a healthy tree if you do a few remediation things to it. Not everybody understands that. Pilot projects are key here, you guys. You need to get pilot projects in different communities that are successful, and I agree you shouldn't have to do them all yourself. But if you do really well at University Park, then sharing that knowledge to other communities and having us be able to also do the pilot project is the way that you're going to get a lot of city help from the Sustainability and Resiliency Department, especially coming next year, because there'll be different funding there. So we're doing the right thing by talking now.
Well, I see a comment here from Leslie. And part of her comment is that she suggests that we reach out to Fran Coleman, head of the Sustainability Committee, subcommittee of PRAB, and give her and her subcommittee a similar presentation. Would it be within our power to write a letter? Perhaps utilizing the letter that Tyler already has and sending it from INC. So I'm going to give you a poll here, and I'd like to know how you feel about it. Should be coming up to you now. I'll give you all about a couple of minutes to
Maggie, it disappeared before I got a chance to look at it.
it should be still up there.
There we go. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
only have 6 responses from any of you. So if you're not,
Maggie, if
yes?
I may, can I add on to my comment? I think that it would be helpful if Tyler and Alan went to Fran with a letter from you if you so choose, but also just in general with this presentation, because what I'm hearing might be overlapping their tree canopy outreach that was part of the game plan.
I agree.
And I mean overlapping in a good way, so they can find a meshing of their of their values, because I know that increasing the tree canopy was a huge part of the game plan. So to bring this to Fran's attention where she can hook Tyler up with those tree canopy folks, I think we should do that sooner rather than later.
I agree. And if it's necessary, this is being videoed. That also can be part of the package that's sent. But I'm concerned because I have 6 out of 6 people voting at 100% for yes, but I have no one else. And there's several people on this call. So I'll leave this up for another minute.
Maggie,
It appeared and disappeared just in a flash, so we didn't get to vote.
Try it again because it's still up there. I can't resend it or it'll destroy the
the vote.
stuff. Okay, now I'm seeing 7 out of 16 voting.
Maggie, I don't know what the letter's going to contain.
Well, I think the letter at this point would contain what they're already sending, Cindy.
Okay, and I have a concern about that, and I'm going to bring it up once more, and then I will stop. The critical piece for the game plan for the city is equity, and I'm feeling uncomfortable about the way it's being presented, with the assumption that all areas in the city have an established canopy. I don't know. It's just, I need to be sure that it is across this, it's something that across the city, anyone who looks at it says, yeah, that applies to me. So
I agree, but I'm
I'm going to vote no.
Okay, I'm agree.
If I may, this is Leslie. There is a page in the game plan, and I'll retext it to you, Katie. I've texted it to you once before, where they show very clearly by neighborhood the tree canopy and the areas that they want to work on first that have a significant lack of tree canopy. So, like you'll see like Country Club and Wash Park have huge tree canopies compared to, as Maggie noted, Westwood or Northeast Park Hill. So right there in the game plan, and the page looks like this, I'll text it to you. You can see how the game plan addresses the lack of equity in tree canopy.
And this letter, as far as I'm concerned, is a future letter. Nothing immediate, but something that we may want to look at in the future. We may even want to meet on this again and invite other people in from those areas, Northeast Denver, Westwood. In fact, Amber, you're living pretty close. You're College View, aren't you?
You're right. Yeah, and what Cindy was saying earlier perfectly describes my neighborhood. Almost no
Right.
trees, no
So-
tree lawns, attached sidewalks, if there are any.
Mm-hmm. And especially with your new developments that are coming in. So I think this is something that we need to view for in the future too, and definitely voting on this, or definitely revisiting this again next year even. Or do you think that this is something, Alan and Tyler, that we have to act on absolutely immediately?
Maggie, to vote on this, I would need, and I know this delays things, but yes, it's an emergency. No, it's not an emergency. This has been going on for multiple years. I would like to see the letter that incorporates what University Park has written, and I think it's very good, but that INC expands it. And I think I could be a yes vote if I knew. I don't want to just send what University Park did. I want to send something that is broader.
Is that something that you or other people would be willing to work on?
Anyone? Wanda, are you willing to work on a letter?
Absolutely, I will help out if that's needed. I understand exactly where you're coming from. I think a good partner here to partner up with is the Alliance Center. They're pretty good at trying to get more diversity in the language of things, whatever the item or initiative is. So my email address is up there. I'll put it up one more time in the chat. But if you want to kind of create a bit of a group, let's do that, and let's work out some of these little kinks, like, okay, you know, if we do plant, who's going to take care of it, or how do we want to maybe, you know, make it even more solid. But yes, equity is where the money comes from, and creating jobs is where the money comes from. I've done this with a lot of different groups, and the minute you do that, we'll go a lot further. So absolutely, I will volunteer. Just reach out to me, and I'm here. If you reach out, I'll be here.
I will,
Leslie?
Wanda. And how about some
Leslie?
other people too? Amber, this is partially your neighborhood. Would this be something that you would be interested in contributing to?
I'd be happy to give some input based on our neighborhood. Yeah.
Okay.
Leslie, what about you?
So I just texted to Katie, and I hope she puts it around. I think honestly, the best next step is for Tyler to meet with the Parks Department and see where they are, because they have definite goals on increasing the existing tree canopy for several neighborhoods, including Globeville, Elyria, Swansea, Civic Center, Gateway, Green Valley Ranch. I won't name them all, but they've got very targeted goals for this coming year. And so I think possibly the best next step is for Tyler to get together and figure out what those goals are and how he and Alan or his group differ from their goals, if at all, or how they might work together beautifully.
Leslie, I'm gonna, we want to keep what we have, and we want to challenge the city to be equitable. So I understand where they're coming from, because right now our trees are getting cut down and not being protected in the area. And I think a letter that incorporates preserving what we have, but demanding from developers that they provide trees in some way in other areas that are not, that don't already have a canopy. It is supportive of the game plan and supportive of, I think, University Park. We are saying we want all of it.
And isn't it kind of also incorporating, you've got your private side and you've got your more public side of things. And so, you know, one thing you're asking is residents to do things, but what about, you know, rental homes and the associations that run those? Or what about HOAs, where some people are being told this tree is dangerous and we need you to take it down?
Right.
Given the option, right? So we have two very separate things with Park and Rec and the city on one, but also RNOs, HOAs, like I said again, churches, corporations on the other. So there may need to be a separation in the letter announcing that we hope the city continues to do what they're saying they're doing, plus be more equitable, but that we also say, here's what we're expecting of our residents and our you know, landlords and people like that. So we may want to work on that wording to make it more equitable and not just specific to one. If that's, is that sort of where you're going to, Cindy?
Yes, and I can't vote until I see something that represents what you just said, or what you, you know, what's been discussed tonight.
Well, I think that's fair. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No, good.
I think we need to discuss this in terms of the time level. Now, we know this is approaching the holiday season. Historically, we know we don't get any response during the holiday season. So we do have time to work on this letter and have it sent out to the rest of you so you can decide whether this is something that you can support. I think that we definitely need to make it inclusive for all neighborhoods, not just those of the neighborhoods that have a tree canopy, but those who want to have a tree canopy. So what I'll do is I have your names. I'll hold you accountable to some of this.
Oh, you're bad. You're really
Thank you.
bad.
Thank you. I learned it from you. And I'll be sending this out to all of you. And I would hope that we will start to work on this letter and make it inclusive enough that those of us who have not supported it can support it. But right now, out of all of us, I think I sent that out to you, that 10 out of 15 did support having a letter. I think that we've discussed this quite a bit. I'd like us to go forward with some other things. I know that Leslie is here to present a few things, and I think that I would like to do that. Tyler and Alan, thank you so much for bringing this to us, because I think that we're starting to see the tip of an iceberg. And this is something that works for every neighborhood, I think, but it's not going to be a short-term process as I see it. So I hope you guys will want to come and speak with us again. I know, Tyler, you're part of this committee, and Alan, I hope you will continue to be. So can we move
Thank you for the time
forward?
tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much for bringing it. Leslie, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Could you show us some of the things that you wanted to talk about? Would you like me
Yeah.
to make you a co-host?
No need to make me a co-host because I'm not so organized to have it on my screen. But before Tyler, you go, what I might also suggest for this letter is that it's not just from INC Park, but it's zoning committee to CPD, because as we know in the development process, a lot of the rules are going through CPD. And it's very easy for parks to say something like, well, we can't put a rule on that because we don't own it. And so if I might make that suggestion as you draft your letter going forward, that it's not just to Happy Haynes and to Parks, but also to Laura Aldrete and the CPD group.
I think that's a great suggestion. I'm sorry that Ian has had to go to another meeting, but we'll certainly bring that to his and his co-chair's attention for this.
Okay, so I have two things and I'll try to be somewhat brief. First thing that came up in last night's meeting. Okay, so last night's meeting, first of all, we unanimously approved the renaming of Columbus Park to La Raza Park. So that will be going before City Council soon. But another thing that came up last night is that right now we have a lot of parks surveys that seem to be closing very quickly. And Greater Park Hill RNO brought up the fact that, and Maria Flora brought up the fact that we are closing them so quickly that we don't give the RNOs time to print them in their newsletters or their newspapers and get adequate response. So I brought that up and for discussion for December, because I want to create a standard timeline. Like if Denver Parks is going to do a survey, it has to be out for this long if it's a citywide survey, or if it's a neighborhood park survey, it has to be out for X amount of time. And so I don't want to say what INC or the RNOs think is an appropriate amount of time, but I want to know from you what you guys think is an appropriate amount of time. And it's okay if you don't have an answer tonight. I don't expect you to, but if you could email me, or more importantly, your PRAB appointee, so they're also on this ball, because that's what I'm going to be asking for in December of our outreach committee.
Right.
Yep, I'll be quiet for comments.
Comments?
I'll start off. I have no idea what that is, Leslie, and thank you for bringing it up, because I think it's a very significant piece when these surveys go out, because I don't think they get out. I mean, it takes 2 or 3, as Maggie will say, probably 4 or 5 times to knock people's head to say this impacts you. I also think that in that scheduling, obviously, I hope the calendar will look at the times of the year, because it seems like in the past, we have had a number of surveys that go out right over the Thanksgiving to January 1st. And that is like not a very good piece to try to do it. So I think they need to limit these surveys more and make them into predictable times that they will be asking questions, and that, you know, there is no emergency, and that they can wait until some, maybe 3 times a year or 4 times a year, where there's surveys that go out, and the neighborhood, the RNOs, everybody knows that these surveys are going to come out spring, fall, summer, winter, but not during holidays.
Well, that's a possibility, but if I might bring up one thing that makes this more complex is the way that the Parks Department does their outreach is oftentimes they hire contractors. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but consultants, right. So they might have only a 6-month window that they're working on, say, the city park playground or something. But I do respect what you just said about holidays. And of course, in a non-COVID year, people are traveling and it gets lost. But we need to keep it a somewhat tight window, again, so that we don't spend too much money on consultants. But we also want it a big enough window that the RNOs have a legitimate chance to let their membership know. And so again, we don't have to talk about it in depth too much tonight, but just Cindy and anyone, let me shoot me an email with your ideas, or again, shoot your own PRAB representative with your ideas. Sandy Robnett, you can send me yours. The second thing I want to bring up is about these Zoom meetings. Number one, my hope is that someone over there in INC is recording these, because I know that we kind of depend on the Parks Department to record Zoom meetings, and I don't think we should do that. And so that's not a trivial issue, and I'll let that marinate amongst you all.
Well, I'd like to ask a little bit more about that first. Who's going, now, we record our Zoom meetings. This committee does, and every other committee also, as well as our main meetings. So who else is supposed to record these?
No, I'm sorry, I think some of you should be recording the PRAB meetings.
Well, that's whether they give us the permission to do it. That's a permission kind of thing. So the host has to provide the permission to do that.
Exactly. That's what I'm asking for. So if you're going to be making a vote on this about Zoom meetings, and maybe what you meant, Maggie, earlier was that you're having a vote on Zoom meetings just amongst yourselves in INC, but it would be great to have a letter from you if you choose to support it. The thought that PRAB will continue to meet over Zoom, even if they're in the non-COVID era. We can meet in person, that you ask for Zoom capability and the ability to record.
Well, I'm willing to ask for that, but I also think that it is the responsibility of the city to make those recordings available for everyone to see. We can't come to these things. I've talked to Cashman, I've talked to several council people about the fact that people previously were driven by Channel 8 to watch things that go on. Well, that to me is a market that is driven to the people who have the money to afford Comcast. Every one of these city meetings should be put over our public channels, Channel 6, Channel 12, whatever, because we as a neighborhood should not be dependent upon providing money to a agency that not everyone has the ability to get. These things should be over antenna TV.
Well, I don't, we can spend a long time discussing this, but like, there's a lot of homes that don't have antenna TV. So whether we ask for it to be on Channel 8 or over Zoom or in person only with a person taking minutes on a piece of paper, I think we should look at how INC can record those meetings or make them more accessible to RNOs than the Parks Department currently is. Because I think they are recording them, but if you've ever tried to get a recording of our meetings, it's like pulling teeth. And then there's issues, and then they're saying things like, oh, to email this is too huge of a file, and there's all these weird things. And
Leslie, I need to interrupt you. Who is they? Is that the city? Because I know it's not INC.
No, of course it's a city. Yeah, no, it's not INC.
Okay, thank you.
Well, actually, all the city would have to do, excuse me, actually, all the city would have to do is put a link there where people can download it. We as INC can download it, and we can even put it on our own YouTube channel for that matter. But we have to be able to go to it. And I do not believe that INC should be held accountable to make the recordings that the city should already be doing.
No, I'm not saying you would be held accountable. My suggestion is as a backup.
Okay.
Katie can back me up in that just getting the city organized enough to get agendas out on time or to get minutes posted is, I mean, after this many years of having so many problems, I question whether they're not purposely making problems. And so it was just a suggestion, not in any way saying you guys should be accountable for it, but it might just be something you consider.
Oh, and I will. And thank you for that.
Right.
Thank you very much.
And that's the end of my two things. Just
Can I say a couple of things? One of them is
Maria.
I want to say thank you to Leslie for the help that she's given me in Greater Park Hill in getting these extensions on these surveys. I think we need a minimum of 60 days to get word of the survey, get it in the newsletter, and give people a chance to react. We've had that problem with the Cars and Parks survey, and I brought it up and Leslie brought it up at PRAB, and the deadline was extended so we could get a piece in our newsletter. And I wanted to ask Leslie if she's gotten an answer yet on this strategic, I forget what it's called, the
strategic acquisition plan.
Yeah, are they going to extend that deadline?
You know what, I'll go through my emails again and see if someone emailed me back, but I did ask for that because but just so you know, and Katie already knows, that strategic acquisition plan survey is just the most BS survey. I mean, they're going to ask you if you want accessibility or equity. And I mean, it's just the most ridiculous thing, but that's not the point. The point is you should have the chance to respond to just this most softball survey.
And that is the point, Leslie.
Yeah,
that is
well,
the point,
let me know
softball.
because Kara DeGette's standing by to put something in the Greater Park Hill News if there's an extension. And I agree, I took that survey and it left me scratching my head. It's not all that unusual for a city survey, but
yeah, how do you choose between accessibility and equity? Like, I didn't even take this. I mean, it was ridiculous. Anyway,
good point.
That's a complaint for another time, but I am done with my speaking point. So Maggie, thank you for letting me drop in. And I'm sorry that I've been
come more and more.
My dinner. Yeah, well, you know, again, with this being on Zoom, it's so much easier than going down to DU area for me.
It is, so, and maybe we could have a virtual potluck from now on.
Yeah, if we're all eating at the same time,
we've always advocated being able to have dinner and maybe cocktails together, and this works. So I hope you'll come back to these meetings more and more. We really appreciate it. I'm reading some of these.
Thanks for having me, Maggie.
One thing I do want to add to this from the PRAB meeting, this is Katie Fisher from University Neighbors. I don't know if you guys have picked up on the new PRAB board is doing things different than they have in the past. They now have these subcommittees. Leslie'd be a better job of saying what they are. The names are kind of clouded in my brain, and I've asked for having a list of what are these committees, who's the committee chair, and everything. It appears now the way this PRAB board wants to go through is that citizens would first contact one of these subcommittees, bring our grievances, our thoughts, our praise, whatever, to the subcommittee. Then the subcommittee would explore it more, make it a real feature item on the agenda so that it's just not the way it used to be, where we'd get overwhelmed with public comment, which is good, but that would take up so much time and no one was ever responded to. And that just frustrated everyone. So now by going through these subcommittees, we're going to find out. Anyone can join the subcommittees is my understanding, not just PRAB members. And if you go to the city webpage, you will see on the calendar part, what's the name of the subcommittee, what time it's going to be in, and how you ask for a Zoom presence on it. Once again, going through Parks and Rec. So I think that is just such a complete roundabout change that the average citizen has no idea this has changed. So we really, really need to get that out. I don't know, Maggie, if you could throw something in the minutes, if people read it, or at our delegates meeting, we say that to the RNOs. But I think this new change is hopeful. Once again, we'll communicate better, all will be better. But if you don't know where to start, you're just drifting. Thank you.
Well, that's great, Katie, and thank you for bringing that up. That's great information. And I'm going to do my ask again. We need people to take minutes because I can't do it. So if somebody can step up to that plate, I hope they can. Otherwise, well, we're without them. That's the bottom line. We're without them.
And if I might add, I know off the top of my head, the 4 subcommittees, first one is policy and regulation. Right now I'm head of that one. We also were the ones who wrote the budget recommendations. The other one is planning. The head of that is Meredith Levy, who is Councilwoman Sawyer's appointee. That has to do with parks planning, obviously. Fran Coleman, who is Kevin Flynn's appointee, is head of the sustainability committee. She'll hear things like tree canopy, geese management, that sort of thing. And the last one is the outreach committee, and that's headed by Dr. Lisa Calderon.
Wonderful. I appreciate everyone who's come to this meeting. I think that we have really discussed some integral things. I'm trying to keep these meetings as short as we possibly can and get the best information possible. I see people out here. I'm wondering if you have something that you want to discuss shortly, maybe 10 minutes at most, because actually I'd like to end this meeting by 7:30 at latest. So I'm asking you. And I also sent out a poll earlier too about what do you want to discuss next year? What seems to be some of the best things that we can work on? So I'm anxious to hear those things. And if anyone would want to volunteer to do minutes, short ones, based on the audio of this minute, of this video, I'd really like to hear from you. So, any takers? I can't hear you, Cindy. Unmute yourself.
I did. Maggie, I'm not going to volunteer for being a secretary because I can't do that.
I understand that.
But I think that I personally would like to hear more of a summary than minutes, because I think our meeting is free flowing and it's very difficult to say, Susie said, Betsy
I
said,
agree.
blah, blah,
We
blah.
didn't have an agenda this time.
Right. And I also want to thank you for a wonderful meeting. I think we had a wonderful conversation, and thank everyone for what we're doing. this topic is a really important topic, and it did flow into what I think we also always need to think about.
Well, I appreciate everyone who came here. Tyler, this was a great thing that you brought to us, and I know we can work on this because I think it's beneficial to our entire city. And Leslie, thank you so much for coming. I hope you'll continue to come because it's great. Does anyone have anything else?
I wanted to ask Wanda,
Yes.
going forward, if they draft anything, that maybe include on any future developments, tree structure must be incorporated. I don't know if it is now, but you know, it's not bad to have it put in there.
Yep. And I think if I may, just to kind of add into all of this, it shouldn't just be trees. Let's please talk about biodiversity and native plants.
Yeah.
And making sure the developer puts down soil and not sand. I mean, this is a big topic, guys. And so if we're going to hit it right, we can hit it from little angles, but we need pollinator plants. We need, shrubs. We need things for the birds and Audubon. We've got to get our partners together. We can't do this and shouldn't do this alone. Park and Rec, I've been working with them. I've been trying to work with them for a long time. I'm on a mission to do non-toxic community neighborhoods. That's equity, guys. That's what we need. And healthy plants will get us there because we have bug infestation, because we have too much pesticide going on everywhere. And I know not everybody's gonna like hearing that, but that is part of this whole big topic. We need beneficial bugs. We don't need annoying bugs. And the only way to get them back is to let the wildlife back. So I know that's like a big extra thing, but I hope we can add that and incorporate it into some of the language we have.
I hope we can too. For those of you who want to provide your email addresses, I hope you do that in the chat. And I will publish this chat with our minutes and with this video so that people can review this. Is there anything else? Otherwise, I'll probably adjourn and everybody should go have their dinner and have a glass of wine or a beer or whatever is your adult beverage or non-adult beverage.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you
Thank
very
you, Ty.
much.